John 15:15, he calls me friend. 1 Thessalonians 1:4, he calls me chosen. Ephesians 2:10, he calls me his masterpiece. He calls me his art. He calls me handmade.
Warning: some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Listening for Christ. I'm your host, Kelsey Gomez, and this is KG Testimonies. In Proverbs 18:21, the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruits. As well in James 3:8, but no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison.
Verse of the day: the tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. James 3:6.
As I begin, I would like to talk to you about word curses. I really never understood why I had continued to go through so much pain in my life. But God revealed to me those word curses that was placed in my life by family and friends. So looking back from what I could remember at 5 years old, after everything I had endured, to the name calling examples: lame, loser, liar, no one will ever love you, thief, you're just like your mom, you'll never be anything in life, etc. To the constant abuse, verbally and physically, I began to believe those word curses and became them growing up. I took them to heart. As a child, you begin to take those things into consideration. I tried my best to ignore these things. It is hard when you constantly hear them. My father was the one always getting us ready for school, and we lived right near the school. So as he would get us ready, he would take us and walk us to the school. And I would always throw tantrums. Like, I could never walk in there quiet or happy. I was always in tears and crying and throwing a fit because I did not want to be alone. I was terrified to hear the things that I was hearing around my family. It was going to be the same thing in school, and I didn't want those things to happen. So my dad would have to literally carry me to take me to my class. He would even stay there in the classroom from the morning to the afternoon, and then he would leave during lunch, just so that I could feel comfortable, just so that I could surround myself with friends. And it was hard. So there was one day when my dad had left in the afternoon when it was lunch. I was waiting in line to go and get my lunch. And I go in there, get my lunch, sit down at a table. I was by myself, didn't really know nobody. And this one boy sat near me, and he had called me fat. And I started bursting in tears, got my plate, threw it away. I couldn't stop crying. I was historically crying, and I took it to heart. Went home that day and didn't eat nothing. I was nitpicking my food. And this continued for several months. My body got super skinny to where you could see every single bone. I didn't want to eat. My mother and father started to get concerned to the point where my mom wouldn't even sleep at night just to watch me go to sleep. Make sure I wasn't gonna pass away during my sleep, because that's how bad it was. I know I scared my parents, but I also was scaring myself. The enemy started to put me in a bubble. I began to build a brick wall around me from the bottom. But something inside me was telling me to get up, that I needed to eat. Slowly but surely I was eating, but I became a picky eater. There were certain things I didn't want to eat, and there was other things I would love to eat. I was suffering from anorexia at a very young age. The Holy Spirit in me, the God that I serve, did not allow it, did not allow me to stop myself from going. As I like to call it, it's the quiet steps of the Lord guiding me. Even though I didn't have a mentor nor a guide, He was my steps. You see, I didn't know these things then, but now I do. I was still in a constant battle with the enemy. I had my first nightmare at that time, and I remember it was a rainy night, the power was out. My mom and my dad had brought our beds all to the living room so that we could all sleep together. And this dream that I had was so vivid that I was there, like I couldn't even wake myself up. I was in this dream stuck. I remember looking around my bed as I see a bunch of dark hands around my bed trying to grab me, but I put the blanket over my head out of scaredness. Was scared to look, but I needed to look. So when I looked again, I looked over to where my mom was sleeping and where my dad was sleeping. And as I was looking at my dad, I had saw his body turn into bones and sinking into the bed, turning into a grave. Same went for my mom. I looked at my sister, same went for her. I cried because I didn't know what to do and how to wake myself up until I heard a noise, a really loud noise, and that woke me up. And when it woke me up, I saw my mother. She was going to the restroom, and I was telling her about it. She was just telling me it was just a bad dream because of the weather, that I needed to go back to sleep. So I shrugged it off and went back to sleep. In that moment, I thought it was silly, but it was terrifying. The previous day from that dream, I remember one of my family members telling me we were gonna end up losing our dad because of the way we treated him. You see, the people that I was raised around, my cousins, weren't very good examples. Those word curses began to grow in me. I started to become those things. I started to reflect my family members. I did what they did, talking trash, disrespecting people, lying, stealing. I began to think those things were cool because my cousins would do it. So as my dad would try to stop us from doing those things, putting discipline on us, setting us in the corner if we did something bad, spanking us if we did anything worse than we shouldn't be doing, he did his part as a parent. I just took the other route. I believed the people that were calling me those things. So I started disrespecting my dad because I couldn't understand why he would do those things to me if everybody around him, everyone that was surrounding me, called me the opposite of what he would tell me. You see, my dad was the only Christian. And again, he did everything he could. Everything that he could to raise us right with the Lord. But that dream that I had came to life on January 14, 2007. It was around nighttime. My mom went to go do laundry with our babysitter at the time. I was in my room playing video games. I remember hearing my mom coming through the door, and a pause was there, quiet. Then I hear a scream so loud that it scared me. I jumped out from my bed, went to the room to where they were at. So in the house that we were living in, there was this kind of a long hallway to get to my parents' room. And I was walking through there, I felt this cold chill. And my mother was crying hysterically. My grandpa was there. And all I see is my grandpa smacking my dad, hearing, "Wake up, Frank, wake up." And no response from my dad. It took several minutes. And there was nothing. Ambulance came. They were there for a couple hours, doing CPR and everything, and nothing. Remember when the ambulance was about to leave, it began to rain. But the sky was so clear. You saw every star, even the moon. But it was raining. I remember telling my tia, "What's going on? What's happening?" I didn't understand. I was too young to understand death. So I waited all night for the phone to ring. Finally got a call from my mother. And my dad had passed away. I remember my dad's mom telling us when she was there, crying for her son to wake up, to come back to life. He was too young to leave. She was just rubbing his face. His face was already purple. The color was distorted. She was just rubbing him and rubbing him and rubbing him, telling him, "Come back, my baby boy, come back." I kid you not, my dad's face began to have flow, to begin to have his color back. But he wasn't there. It freaked her out so much that she had fainted. They had to give her an oxygen mask to breathe. So when we got the news, I didn't know how to handle it. I saw everybody else screaming and yelling and crying. So I began to cry because everybody was crying. I didn't understand at the moment. I didn't understand that my dad was dead. I just went along when everybody else was doing. Losing my dad took a toll on everybody. Again, getting hit left to right with all the enemy's attacks. From being sexually assaulted at a young age. From almost dying from a dog. From word curses. Life did not get any easier after his death. We had to raise money for his funeral. Well, we couldn't even afford his funeral. But the thing is, my dad was well loved by the community in the valley. Our school, they donated a huge chunk of money from plate sales. And we ended up getting what we needed to pay for his funeral, to even get a tombstone. But the enemy had different plans. And one of our family members who was helping us at the time with our dad's fundraisers, she decided that it was okay to take a huge chunk of that for herself and her family. I pray that this piece of my testimony touches some of you. Word curses are things that we need to break off from generational curses from our ancestors. You hold the power to your tongue. You could either bless someone or curse someone. One thing my dad would always tell us: think before you say. Word curses like to hide in the dark. Some are forgotten the moment you ask the Lord. Nothing is hidden. All will come to the light. Stay tuned for the next episode of Listening for Christ.